We are joined today by Sir David Lidington, Theresa May's de facto Deputy Prime Minister. Sir David held key positions, including Leader of the House of Commons and Lord President of the Council during her tenure, and later as Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor. David, thank you so much for joining us today. For our first question, as it's International Women's Day and Theresa May was the second female Prime Minister, how would you reflect on her legacy in terms of empowering women in leadership and politics?
No, I think the very fact that we had in Britain and from the Conservative Party a second woman Prime Minister itself was a very powerful statement. I mean, Margaret Thatcher obviously was a complete trailblazer, but there was perhaps a sense of, was this a one-off? And I think that after Theresa's period in office, there's a sense amongst women politicians in my party and in other political parties in British politics that, if you're an ambitious and talented woman, you have every bit as good a chance as a man to get to the top job, and you should go for it if that's what you want. So I think that was that. It's just the very fact that she did it was important. She certainly encouraged other women candidates, and she took a close interest in new women MPs, particularly, but not just on the Conservative side, and tried to mentor them and give them a bit of support. And she was Theresa's somebody who, I don't want to sound as if I'm speaking the bittery. She's still very much with us, and I think she's got a lot more to give to public service in Britain. But she's somebody who refuses to be put down. I think she's somebody who has undoubtedly had to put up during her long career in parliamentary politics with more than a little bit of sexism and some people from time to time sort of denigrating her. And I think she's a very tough lady, and I think she stood up to all that. I can remember when she told the Conservative Party conference, and she was party chairman, look, there are a lot of people out there who think of us as the nasty party, and he was trying to shock people into get real about where public opinion is. I remember as Home Secretary going to the Police Federation annual conference, and instead of doing what would be the easy thing, which is to congratulate them, say how wonderful they were, delivered some very unwelcome but truthful messages about problems with police corruption, with other difficulties and failures in the police service, and an erosion of public confidence, and got a very stony reception from the assembled police officers there. But that's a very tough and brave thing to do. So I think it's just her approach to leadership and politics, so that I think will be an example for other women, and not just Conservative women.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I think her resilience was inspiring. Just moving on to our next question, surrounding energy and sustainability. As Theresa May was dedicated to achieving net zero, her departure from Parliament means one less ally in the House of Commons for clean energy and sustainability. How do you anticipate she will continue her commitment for the fight for sustainability in her future endeavours?
Well, I think remembering, what it was like when I left the House of Commons 5 years ago, that if you've been in Parliament for a long period of time, you probably need a little bit of a breathing space when you step down to think, right, how am I going to allocate my time from now on? And I think she will continue to speak up for the importance of net zero. She's somebody who sees that as an important issue in ethical and environmental terms, yes. Remember that Theresa is somebody whose politics is grounded in her Christian faith and her sense of public duty that arises from that. So the Christian idea of stewardship responsibilities for creation is something that would lead her naturally into championing the net zero agenda. But I'm sure she'll want alongside that to be continuing to campaign and find ways to work on things like the modern slavery issue that she made very much her own. And who knows, so there may be particular charities, particular areas of public policy work outside Parliament that she has not had time to do when she's been in the front rank of politics, and she might choose to spend time to do now. So I think very interesting to see what she does choose to focus on in her post-parliamentary career.
Yeah, certainly. Her departure from the Commons maybe means she spends more time in her commitment for energy and sustainability. Moving on to our third question. Given Theresa May's known prioritisation of her constituents, her resignation will undoubtedly have a significant impact on them. Drawing from your close collaboration with her, what advice would you offer to her successor?
First, never take your constituency for granted. Theresa never did. She was always very conscious that it was an enormous privilege to be sent to the House of Commons by the votes of your constituents, and she always felt accountable to them. And even when she was Prime Minister, she would very often spend Sunday afternoons taking a street in Maidenhead and just going and door knocking with a small team of local party volunteers. It was a nightmare for her security detail, who really didn't want the Prime Minister to be doing this at all. And these were not people who'd been vetted. Just go, right, this is the list of people in the living along that street. We're going to go knock on their doors in turn. And you didn't know whether they were going to, or necessarily whether they were going to be supporters or not. And she would always spend time, even as Prime Minister, doing constituency events. So she spent a rainy, Saturday or Sunday, marshalling at the annual 10K run in Maidenhead. I think there's probably not many prime ministers before her who would have continued with that sort of duty, or since her, who would have continued with that sort of duty. But all credit to her for it. So, message to a successor would be: never take your patch for granted, never take the voters for granted. Always remember, even if you get too high or the highest office in the land, that you get that opportunity because their votes sent you there. So keep in touch with them and continue to listen.
Certainly, I think we can use her as an example of someone who balances, that successfully and listens to the people who put her there in place. And finally, just a final question on ideology. So Theresa May is often described as a one-nation Conservative. Leaving Parliament, how do you foresee her absence impacting the future makeup of the Conservative Party?
Oh, I think there's no doubt that Theresa's departure from Parliament will be a loss to the House of Commons and to the Conservative Party in the House of Commons. It's a wealth of experience will go, but there is a time that comes to everybody when you have to weigh up whether you continue or not. And I remember my own case. It's the thought of, it's not just, am I happy to do this for another 12 months? It's, do I want to commit for a further 5-year term? Knowing that if you commit yourself at a general election to stand, you really can't, in all honour, decide halfway through the next Parliament you're fed up with it and you want to bail out. You've got to be ready to do it for the full 5 years to the very best of your ability and with all the energy that you have at your disposal. And so I don't criticise her at all for having come to the decision that she wants to step down and do other things in her life now. And I think that she will continue to speak for a vision of the Conservative Party that is a broad church that values and respects both its left and its right, that tries to bring together people from the centre through the centre right into the democratic right of British politics. She's somebody for whom the idea of the Union of the United Kingdom is very, very important. I mean, I would argue that she probably sacrificed her premiership at the end of the day because she was not prepared to agree to a deal with the European Union that created additional problems for Northern Ireland. And she was much more willing to say the UK as a whole will remain more aligned to EU regulations than to have Northern Ireland hived off and treated as a special case. She got a lot of flack for it at the time, but I think that she was right in her judgment, and she put the union first in her thinking. And I think that's a very important strand in Conservative Party politics that I hope she will continue to champion. I'm confident she will continue to champion in her post-parliamentary work.
Great, thank you. And just a follow-up question, where next, in your opinion, for One Nation Conservatism?
Oh, I think One Nation conservatism is still very much alive and kicking. That there's a strong One Nation caucus in the House of Commons, and there's supporters outside. I think that I think the lesson for the Conservative Party is that a lurch off to the right does not win you elections or the opportunity to be in office. And I've seen the Labour Party twice in my political lifetime, once under Michael Foot in the 1980s and then under Jeremy Corbyn more recently, go mad, go herring off to the far left of politics. And the Labour Party suffered a crushing reverse on each occasion. And Labour's current recovery in the polls is derives from the fact that they are seen to have moved back to the centre. And whenever the voters are polled about where they see themselves in terms of the political spectrum, most voters regard themselves as in the centre or slightly to the left or right of centre. And so political parties, if they're going to win, have to align themselves with whether the electorate itself sees them as restive. If the electorate think of themselves as broadly speaking centrist, then that's the way you win elections, is by appealing to those voters. And I think the Conservative Party is its strongest when it seeks to represent people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all ethnicities, religions, all parts of the UK, and it needs to be a broad church in order to win an election and have a decent majority. And I hope that that's the tradition that will win out in the Conservative Party.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, David, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again.